ladies, if I could just get you to come line up here so you're facing towards this yellow pole. If you're on a little bit of a diagonal, that's all right. Okay, so I kind of drew a line in the sand. Just make sure you space yourselves out at least a horse width in between you and the next horse. All right, so these students are all currently at a rider level 3. They've done all 3 gaits, the stop, back up, as well as we've introduced and practiced the leg yield. So today we're moving on to some other lateral movements. So hello everyone, my name is Samantha and I'm going to be your instructor for today. Today we're going to learn the turn on the forehand, but before we get into all of the aids and so forth, I'm just going to let you know that I've done a facility check. All the gates are closed, except that one over there. We have a wall of poles here that we're going to be using for progression 1, so just make sure you stay on the inside. And there's also a line of poles behind you that's kind of to mark the edge of the arena. So again, make sure you don't go past that. And we also have some cones lined up here in the middle that we'll be using for progression 2 and 3, so make sure we don't kind of stomp all over those. And there are also people watching, there are obstacles in the corners, and there are also 3 barn cats in this barn that occasionally enjoy running through our lesson. So we'll just watch out for them as well. So I'm going to come around and do a very quick tack check and you can introduce yourself and your horse. So hello, how are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. So your cinch is good. All right, so do you know why it's so very important that our cinch is all tightened up?
So I don't fall on the ground.
Exactly, and your name and your horse?
My name's Shelby and this is Jackson.
All right, and are there any health concerns?
Nope.
All right, perfect. That's good. And you are?
Haley.
Haley, and your horse?
Angela.
Okay, do you know why it's important that we make sure our throat latch is that 4-finger width?
So that our bridle doesn't slide off.
All right, and what would happen? What would happen if it was too tight?
Choke him.
Yeah, he'll have trouble flexing. And no health concerns?
No.
Nope. All right, hello, and you are?
Sierra.
Okay, and your horse's name?
Cora.
All right. Okay, so the turn on the forehand is a lateral movement that we perform at the stop. And what it is the horse moves their hindquarters in even, quiet steps around their front end, which stays in one place. So they are basically pivoting around their front end. And that means that one of their legs has to be a pivot foot. And you'll see when we get into the demonstration that Stephanie's legs are wrapped. And so when a horse is moving their hip to the right, for example, then the leg opposite the direction of movement is what's going to be our pivot foot. So if the hip is moving to the right, what is our opposite front leg, Haley? If the hip is moving to the right. Left front leg, good. And then vice versa, if you're moving the horse's hip to the left, your right front foot becomes that pivot foot. And again, you'll see it more in the demonstration when we can bring Stephanie out and you can actually watch the colored legs. So it's important for us to learn our turn on the forehand, mostly because it's a mandatory movement in our Rider 3 and 4 tests, but it's also great for correction exercises when we get into more advanced movements. And it helps keep our horses nice and supple and responsive to our aids. So that's always important that our horse stays nice and flexible and soft. So the aids for our turn on the forehand, you want to start off with moving your outside leg back behind the cinch, about 4 to 6 inches. So if you're moving your horse's hip to the right, then your left leg will move back behind the cinch. All right, does everyone understand that? So first you just want to move your leg back so it's ready and in position. The second thing you want to do is take a nice feel of your horse's face with 2 direct reins. All right, but you don't want it to be super direct rein as if we're going to back our horse up. You just want a nice light feel. That's going to prevent them from walking forward on you, but you don't want to hold them so much that they start backing up. All right. And then finally, with that outside leg back, you've got your 2 direct reins. Then you want to apply that leg that you've moved back behind the cinch. And what that leg is doing is you're basically just pushing their hindquarters off that leg, okay? And if you need to, you can sit a little bit on the seat bone that is in the direction of movement. So if you're using your left leg to push your horse's hip to the right, then you want to put a little bit more weight on your right seat bone, and that just helps encourage the horse to step up underneath you. So it kind of encourages them to make that proper turn. Are there any questions before we do the demonstration? All right, so I'm going to go grab our demonstration horse, and I'll show you guys what's going on. Away from the pole here. Come on, Stephanie. Ooh. Okay, so as you guys can see, we have a right polo wrap on our right leg, red polo wrap on our right leg, and we have a blue polo wrap on her left leg. So that's going to show us our pivot feet once we get into our turn on the forehand. So what we're going to do first, for our first progression, is there's 3 poles here, and what you're going to do is you're going to come up. Come on, Stephanie. Okay, I'm just going to turn myself around here so you guys can see the aids better. Okay, so you're going to come up next to a pole. You're going to stop. You want to make sure there's about a horse width between you and the pole, and the poles are basically acting as our wall for our first progression. They're just going to help us keep our horse as straight as we can, so we can focus more on the aids, and then when we get to our other exercise, then we'll add a little bit of straightness to it. So, Shelby, what's the very first thing I'm going to do before I do my turn on the forehand? I'm going to be moving her hip to the left. All right. So my right leg is back. Haley, what's the next thing I want to do? So for the aids, I put my right leg behind the cinch. What's the next thing you want to do? Okay. And what do I want to do with my reins? What's the rein aid? It doesn't matter which way I'm going. Your reins stay. You want to keep your horse's head and neck straight. Okay, so what would this rein aid be if I'm just kind of bringing them straight back to my hips? Direct rein, there we go. All right. So Sierra, what's the last thing? I got my leg back, I have my 2 direct reins, I'm ready to go. What's the next thing I want to do? All right, so I'm just going to exaggerate it a little bit here so you guys can see. So I'm sitting in my other seat bone, and finally, you're going to actually push your leg into the horse. We're going to add some leg pressure. We're going to move her hip to the left. So if her hip's going to the left, we're going to be watching the red polo. Okay, her right leg is going to be our pivot foot. So now that we have all our aids managed, I'm going to start applying pressure. Okay, and all right, so watch that red leg as I pivot around here. Stephanie. All right, did you see how the red leg stays fairly stationary, and it almost kind of twists with the movement of her pivot? Did everybody see that? Okay, we'll watch when I go the other way, and now we're going to watch the blue polo. Okay, so if the hip is going to the right now, which leg am I going to use as my leg aid? Left leg. Good job, guys. So I'm just going to push pressure in with my left leg. And with how she did that there, if they kind of push their shoulder out like she did there, kind of leans on her shoulder, then you can pick up on your rein of opposition. You should remember that from our other lesson. You kind of pick up on your rein of opposition, and what that does is it kind of holds their shoulder up. But you only want to do that as a correction. You don't want to always hold your rein of opposition up. All right? So are there any questions before I dismount? All right, wonderful. Come on. All right, so Sierra, I'm actually going to ask you to go all the way down to that yellow and white pole, and then you can face towards me. And then Haley, once Cora and Sierra are out of the way, you can go straight to the yellow pole. And then you can face me, and then Shelby, you can have this green and yellow pole that's right beside me. And I'm just going to move over here so I can see you guys. Okay, yep, make sure you're up in kind of the middle of the pole. That gives you a full horse length and a little bit between you and the next horse, just so that way if your horse takes a step forward, takes a step back, there's still plenty of cushion room for you guys to work with. Okay, so we want to push with the way our horse is facing. We want to push their hip to the left so we don't push them into the pole, or if it was a wall, they don't bump themselves on the wall, okay? And that'll help when we get to our other exercise. So, first aid, Sierra, what are you going to do first thing? Okay, so which leg is that going to be if you're pushing her hip towards me? Yes. All right, so everyone move your outside leg back, your right leg, behind the cinch. And if that's ready to go, then Haley, what's the second step? Pardon me? Two direct reins. Okay, I just didn't hear you say direct. Okay, and finally, Shelby, what's the next thing we want to do? All right, good. And then we're going to apply that leg. So you guys can go ahead. And we're going to ask for just a little bit of, there you go, you got that, Haley, good job. Okay, so Sierra, I want you to pick up on that rein of opposition, your left rein. Hold that shoulder. Make sure you open up with your left leg just a little bit, because if you hold that leg there, you're closing that door, okay? So you want to make sure that left leg comes off a bit so that way she has room to move in that direction, okay? All right, so you guys we're going to swap our aids now and go the other way. So now it's which leg that's coming back behind the cinch, Shelby? Left leg, good. Okay, so you guys can go ahead, two direct reins, outside leg back. Good, same thing, Shelby. Now you're going to pick up on that right rein just a tad, just to hold that there. There, did you feel that last half a step?
Yes.
Okay, and you felt how his shoulders were nice and kind of in one spot?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Okay, so one more time, we're going to do our turn off your right leg. So you guys can go ahead. Good job, Sierra. That's looking better. I like how you're giving her room to move with that left leg. And that looked very nice, Haley. Okay, and finally, once more, going the other direction. We're all looking really good here. Okay, pick up with that right rein a little bit. There you go. There, that's better, Shelby. Okay, so does everyone feel confident with the turn on the forehand now that we're... Okay, so we're going to move on to our next progression. So you can see that I have 4 boxes here that are spread out with some cones. So I'm just going to walk a quick demonstration here so you guys know what we're doing. So you're going to each come to your corresponding box. Okay, so Shelby, you're going to come to this one, and Haley to the middle, and Sierra, you can go to the box at the end. So what we're going to do is you're going to walk up, and we're going to start by moving the horse's hip to the left. So you're going to walk up so your horse's barrel is even with the cone, but you want to make sure you're away from the cone enough that when you do your turn, you're not going to bump over a cone, okay? So the reason for lining up the barrel of your horse is so that way when you turn and they pivot with their front end, you're going to be perfectly lined up to go to your next cone, okay? So we're just going to work in series of 90-degree angles. So you're here, 2 direct reins, your right leg, you're pushing their hip to the left, and then you're going to pause for a second, you're going to walk to the next cone, line up their barrel, 2 direct reins, outside leg, pushing their hip in this direction, then you're going to walk to the next one, apply your aids, push their hip over, to the next one, same thing. Once you manage to do all 4 of your turns, you're going to stop, and we're just going to make sure everyone else is ready to go, and then we'll switch directions. All right, so you guys can come to your corresponding sets of cones here.
You have 5 minutes left.
Hey, Haley, you can come to the center here. Okay, so you guys can pick a cone to start with. I'm going to leave that up to you. Okay, so because we're facing this direction, we actually want to move our horse's hip to the right. Okay, because we don't want to run, there you go, Haley, that turn was nice. So because we don't want to bump into our cones. Pardon me? Yep. You just want to make sure you're not pushing their hip into the cone, okay? And Sierra, can I get you just pause to check their Shelby and let Sierra get organized? Okay, just walk to the next cone, Sierra. And I'm going to have you pause just a second and let her calm down and relax yourself. Okay. Okay, now you can apply that leg and finish that little turn there. Good, now pause. Okay, you want to make sure she gets calmed down and then you can move to the next cone. Okay, pause just a little bit longer. There you go. Now you can move to the next cone. Okay, because she's getting a little anxious on you, so we just want to make sure we pause long enough so we can calm her down. That turn there was lovely, Haley. Okay, I liked how you paused there, Shelby. That was nice. That was a very nice turn, Sierra. I liked how she remained nice and calm. She had a lot of even steps there rather than just kind of prancing her legs. All right, so we're all back where we started, so we're going to very quickly go and change direction. Okay, so you can just do a small circle or turn to change direction. So now we're moving the horse's hip in what direction, Sierra?
The left.
To the left, good. All right, and Haley's already on a mission here. She's heading out. So same thing, Sierra, you want to just move her to the next cone and just let her stand and pause for a second, okay? And get her all nice and straight, 2 direct reins, okay? And then once you feel that she's responsive, then you can push her over there. And then pause a little bit. It's looking good, Shelby. There, pick up on your left rein of opposition there, Sierra. Just you want to catch that shoulder just as it starts to bulge out, okay? I liked how nice and smooth he was with that step. That means you're applying your leg nice and quietly. That's very nice. All right, so Haley, you can stop there. We'll just let Sierra stop there as well, and you guys can come line up where we were before. Okay, so over here. Yeah, just make sure you guys stay a horse length apart, okay? We don't want any accidents. Okay, so are there any questions? Okay, because if not, I have some questions for you. All right, so Shelby, why do we want to learn our turn on the forehand?
So that we can do more lateral movements later on.
Okay, and is there anything else? There's about 3 things I mentioned. Nope. Okay, so we want to keep our horse nice and supple. Okay, and it's a mandatory movement for our rider tests. But most importantly, I like yours, that we can use it for more advanced movements later on. Okay, so Haley, what does the turn on the forehand? Like, what is happening once we apply our aids?
The haunches are moving around the forearm, and if you're moving to the left, your right front pivots. If their hind end is moving to the left, your right front pivots, and if your hind end is moving to the right, your left front pivots.
Wow, that's very descriptive. I like that. It's correct. And Sierra, what are our aids for our turn on the forehand?
Outside leg behind the cinch,
Okay.
inside at the cinch.
Okay, but what don't we want to do too much with that leg?
Don't want to apply pressure.
Exactly.
And 2 direct reins.
Okay. And there's one more thing. Something to do with our, there you go. Yep. All right.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll just quickly go back in. I want you to think of 2 things. 2 things that we could help Sam out to make this lesson better.
Oh, I can think of several.
Good job. All right, are you ready, Sierra? You can get set up.
Do you want me to
Rock
move
her legs quickly.
Okay, do you want me to move these poles out of your way?
Yes, please.
Okay.